Mid-December in New York City. Lights glitter across the skyline as people rush to finish holiday shopping. But for one family, the season of celebration would become a moment frozen in time. On December 23, 2021, what began as a birthday celebration ended with gunshots on a Queens sidewalk. This is the story of Mai Johnson, a mother, a sister, a protector, whose life was cut short at just 27 years old. Bushwick, Brooklyn, a neighborhood known for its vibrant street art and diverse community. This was home to Mye Johnson, a woman whose commitment to public service defined her too short life. In 2017, Mai joined the New York Police Department as a school safety agent. It wasn't just a job, it was a calling. Each morning, she'd put on her uniform, ready to stand guard over New York City's most precious resource, its children. Her colleagues described her as someone who took her responsibilities seriously, showing genuine care for the students she protected. Mai wasn't just going through the motions, says a former coworker. She genuinely connected with those kids. She knew their names, their stories. She made them feel secure in a city that can sometimes feel overwhelming. Though she had been on medical leave since July 2020, her identity remained firmly anchored in her role as a protector. Friends say she spoke often about returning to her position, about the difference she felt she made each day. Her dedication spoke volumes about her character, someone who found fulfillment in keeping others safe. But to understand Mai Johnson fully, we need to look beyond her professional life. At the center of her world was her 7-year-old son. Those who knew her best described their relationship as extraordinary, a bond built on love, laughter, and unwavering devotion. Home videos show Mai and her son reading together, cooking together, dancing around their apartment with abandon. She approached motherhood with the same dedication she brought to her career, creating a warm, stable environment despite the challenges of single parenthood in one of America's most expensive cities. Her son was everything to her. Recalls a family friend. Every decision she made with him in mind. She was building a future for them both. That future included plans to advance in her career and eventually buy a home outside the city. Dreams that now exist only in the memories of those who loved her. Some bonds transcend ordinary relationships. The connection between Mai and her twin sister was one such bond. A relationship that began before birth and was characterized by an almost supernatural understanding. They shared more than identical features. They shared secrets, dreams, inside jokes that no one else could possibly understand. They finished each other's sentences. They sensed when the other was in trouble. They celebrated birthdays together, including what would be Mai's final celebration. When you saw them together, you witnessed something special, says a childhood friend. They weren't just sisters or even twins. They were two halves of something complete. This connection would later become painfully significant. Mai's twin sister was present on the night of the shooting, a witness to the moment that would shatter their shared future, leaving one to continue alone where once they moved through life as a pair. Mai's impact extended beyond her immediate family. In Bushwick, she was known as someone who showed up for neighborhood cleanups, for school fundraisers, for friends in need. Her work as a school safety agent put her at the intersection of education, law enforcement, and community service. Students from her school remember her as the officer with the bright smile who made them feel welcomed and protected. Parents appreciated her vigilance. Teachers valued her partnership in creating safe learning environments. She understood that safety isn't just about rules and regulations, remembers a school administrator. It's about relationships. Mai built those relationships every day. This network of connections formed a tapestry of support for her and her son. Friends became family. Colleagues became confidants. Mai created community wherever she went, never suspecting that this same community would soon gather in grief rather than celebration. As we continue exploring Mai Johnson's story, we want to invite you to be part of our community. Stories like Mai's deserve to be told with care and respect. If you believe in highlighting the lives of victims rather than just the crimes committed against them, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps our team continue sharing these important stories. Now, let's return to December 2021, when a birthday celebration was about to take a devastating turn. December 22nd, 2021. As holiday decorations adorned the streets of Queens, Mai Johnson prepared for an evening of celebration. Her 27th birthday deserved something special, and she chose Soleto, a popular nightclub on Steinway Street in Astoria. The venue was known for its energetic atmosphere and stylish crowd, the perfect place to mark another year of life. Mai didn't arrive alone. Her twin sister accompanied her. Their birthdays always a shared celebration. Also present was her boyfriend, Deshaun Parker, a relationship that had become a source of stability and happiness in recent months. Friends joined them too, people who had walked alongside Mai through the challenges and triumphs of the past year. The group entered Soleto sometime after 10 p.m. Security footage would later show them laughing, dressed for a night out, unaware that these captured moments would become evidence in a homicide investigation. For now, they were simply young people preparing to celebrate. Mai had chosen her outfit with care, a dress that made her feel confident, jewelry that caught the light. Her smile, captured in the last photos taken that night, revealed someone enjoying life. Someone with plans and dreams that extended far beyond this single evening. The date held significance. Just days before Christmas, a time when New York City transforms into a wonderland of lights and possibility. For Mai, it represented not just another birthday, but the close of a challenging year and the promise of better days ahead. Inside Soleto, the celebration was everything Mai had hoped for. The club pulsed with energy, music flowing through the space, lights painting patterns across the dance floor, bottles being delivered to tables with sparklers that momentarily outshone everything else. Security cameras captured fragments of the evening. Mai dancing with her sister, their movements so in sync it seemed choreographed. Mai and Deshaun sharing private moments amid the crowd. Friends raising glasses in toast after toast to the birthday girl. She was radiant that night. One friend later told investigators, "Truly happy. The kind of happiness that comes from being surrounded by people who genuinely care about you." Patrons who didn't know Mai still remembered her presence, the birthday girl who moved through the club with confidence and joy. Staff members were called serving her table, noting the celebratory mood. No one in that club, least of all Mai, could have guessed that outside, beyond the music and laughter, forces were gathering that would transform celebration into tragedy. No one suspected that someone might be watching, waiting, planning a violent conclusion to the evening's festivities. The time was approximately 4 a.m. on December 23rd when Mai and her group prepared to leave Soleto. The night had stretched long, filled with dancing, drinks, and the kind of conversations that only happen in the small hours when inhibitions have lowered and hearts have opened. Security footage shows them gathering their belongings, Mai checking her phone, perhaps arranging transportation. Her sister stands close by, Deshaun with his arm protectively around Mai's shoulders. Friends cluster nearby, some showing signs of the late hour, others still energized. Outside, Astoria had quieted. The December air was cold against their skin after the warmth of the packed club. Street lights cast long shadows as the group paused on the sidewalk, discussing their next move. Some were heading home, others were considering extending the celebration elsewhere. Witnesses would later describe the scene as ordinary, just another group of young people concluding their night out. Taxis occasionally passed by. A food vendor was closing up nearby. The sounds of the city had dimmed to a background hum. Mai stood at the center of her group, still the birthday girl, still the focus of attention and affection. Security footage shows her laughing at something Deshaun said, leaning against him slightly. Her sister checks her phone, perhaps ordering a ride. None of them noticed the white BMW that had appeared at the edge of the block. The arrival of Quezon Williams changed everything in an instant. At 29, Williams was Mai's former boyfriend. Their relationship had ended, but clearly not in his mind. Williams emerged from his vehicle with purpose. Witnesses described his approach as determined, focused entirely on the group standing outside the club. Some in Mai's party noticed him first, their expressions changing enough to alert Deshaun that something was wrong. "Who's that?" someone asked. just loud enough to be heard on security footage. Recognition dawned on several faces simultaneously. Mai stiffened. Deshawn stepped slightly forward, protective instinct taking over. Williams continued his approach. The initial exchange was verbal, words thrown like weapons across the sidewalk. Williams directed his fury primarily at Deshawn, the man who now stood where he once had. But his gaze kept returning to Mai, who witnesses say attempted to de-escalate the situation. "This isn't the time or place," she reportedly said. "Just leave, please." But Williams had not come to talk. The argument escalated rapidly, voices rising, bystanders beginning to move away from what was clearly becoming a dangerous situation. Deshawn stood his ground, refusing to be intimidated, perhaps not fully understanding the level of threat. Mai's sister later described trying to pull Mai away, sensing the volatile nature of the confrontation, but it was already too late. The transition from argument to violence happened in seconds. Williams reached beneath his jacket and produced a handgun. There was barely time for anyone to react. Multiple shots rang out on Steinway Street, the sound echoing between buildings. People scattered. Some dropped to the ground, some ran. Chaos erupted in what had been, moments before, just another quiet early morning in Queens. Mai was struck multiple times, bullets finding her torso and leg. She collapsed on the sidewalk as her sister screamed and Deshawn lunged toward Williams. But Williams was already retreating, backing toward his car, weapon still raised. Witnesses described the aftermath as surreal. Mai on the ground, her birthday outfit now stained with blood, her sister kneeling beside her, hands pressing against wounds. Deshawn, torn between pursuit and returning to help Mai. Bystanders calling 911, voices shaking as they described the situation. Williams fled in his white BMW as sirens began to sound in the distance. Emergency services arrived quickly, but the damage had been done. Paramedics worked frantically to stabilize Mai before transporting her to Mount Sinai Queens Hospital. The celebration had ended. The fight for her life had begun. Chaos reigned on Steinway Street in the seconds after the shooting. Mai Johnson lay on the cold December pavement, blood pooling beneath her. Her twin sister dropped to her knees beside Mai, pressing her hands against the wounds, desperately trying to stem the flow of blood. The birthday celebration that had filled the night with joy now gave way to screams and frantic calls for help. Deshawn Parker, Mai's boyfriend, stood frozen for a moment, caught between rushing to her side and pursuing the man who had just opened fire. Ultimately, he chose to stay, kneeling beside Mai's sister, adding his efforts to keep Mai alive until help could arrive. Bystanders who had scattered at the sound of gunfire now cautiously returned, some offering assistance, others making urgent calls to emergency services. The nightclub's security personnel emerged, attempting to secure the area and provide aid. In those crucial first minutes, strangers became allies in the fight to save a young mother's life. "Stay with us, Mai," her sister pleaded, voice breaking. "Help is coming, just stay with us." Mai, still conscious but gravely injured, struggled to speak. According to witnesses, her thoughts were not of herself, but of her son. "Tell him I love him," she whispered to her twin, words that would later haunt everyone who heard them. The first police units arrived within minutes of the 911 calls, followed closely by paramedics. Officers secured the perimeter, while emergency medical technicians immediately assessed Mai's condition. The situation was dire. Multiple gunshot wounds to her torso and leg had caused significant blood loss and potential internal damage. Working with practiced efficiency, the paramedics stabilized Mai as best they could at the scene. An officer held her sister back, allowing the medical team space to work. Deshawn paced nearby, answering preliminary questions from police while keeping his eyes fixed on Mai. "She's strong," he told officers. "She's the strongest person I know." The decision to transport came quickly. With lights flashing and sirens clearing their path, the ambulance sped toward Mount Sinai Queens Hospital. Inside, paramedics fought to keep Mai stable, administering fluids, monitoring vital signs, and communicating continuously with the hospital. At Mount Sinai, a trauma team stood ready. The moment the ambulance doors opened, the hospital staff took over, rushing Mai into the emergency department where surgeons waited. Despite their expertise and swift response, the extent of Mai's injuries presented an overwhelming challenge. Hours later, despite exhaustive efforts, medical staff would deliver the news to her waiting family that Mai Johnson had succumbed to her injuries. While medical professionals fought to save Mai's life, Quason Williams was already miles away. Security cameras captured his white BMW speeding from the scene, running through red lights in his haste to escape the consequences of his actions. Williams's path took him toward the Queensboro Bridge, a route that would lead him out of New York City and into New Jersey. Traffic cameras traced portions of his journey, creating a digital trail that would later become crucial evidence. According to later police reports, Williams crossed state lines within an hour of the shooting. His apparent goal was to put as much distance as possible between himself and the crime scene, perhaps believing that jurisdictional complications might work in his favor. What Williams couldn't have known was that a New Jersey state trooper would stop him for a traffic violation later that same day. Due to the lack of an immediate warrant, Williams was released after receiving a citation, a missed opportunity that investigators would later lament. Back on Steinway Street, the nightclub area had transformed into an active crime scene. Yellow tape cordoned off the sidewalk where Mai had fallen. Evidence markers dotted the ground, each indicating a shell casing or other potential piece of evidence. Officers methodically photographed and collected these items, creating the foundation of what would become a complex investigation. As we reach this pivotal moment in Mai Johnson's story, our team wants to thank you for staying with us. These stories matter, not just because they document tragedy, but because they honor lives that deserve to be remembered. If you're finding value in this account, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the notification bell. Your engagement helps these important stories reach more people. Now, let's continue following the evidence that would eventually lead authorities to Mai's killer. Investigators interviewed witnesses who remained at the scene, collecting descriptions of the shooter, the vehicle, and the sequence of events. Mai's sister and Deshawn provided critical details, including confirming Williams' identity as the shooter and describing the prior relationship between him and Mai. The most compelling evidence came from surveillance systems. Multiple cameras had captured the confrontation, the shooting, and Williams' escape. These recordings provided clear visuals of Williams approaching the group, drawing his weapon, and firing multiple shots before fleeing. The footage also confirmed the make, model, and license plate of his vehicle. Inside the club, investigators reviewed additional footage that showed no interaction between Williams and Mai's group during the evening. This suggested Williams had not been a patron that night, but had instead arrived specifically to confront Mai and Deshawn as they exited, an indication of premeditation that would later factor into the charges against him. Forensic technicians collected blood samples, tested for gunshot residue, and analyzed the recovered bullet casings. The ballistic evidence would eventually be matched to a weapon associated with Williams, creating another link in the chain of evidence connecting him to the crime. By dawn, investigators had assembled enough preliminary evidence to name Quason Williams as the primary suspect in Mye Johnson's death. What they didn't yet know was how long it would take to bring him into custody. In the days following Mye Johnson's death, the New York Police Department mobilized a full-scale investigation. A team of detectives from the NYPD's Homicide Division took the lead, working closely with officers from the local precinct who had responded to the scene. Their mission was clear: locate Quason Williams and gather enough evidence to ensure conviction. Investigators established a timeline of events leading up to the shooting. They traced Williams' movements prior to his arrival at Soleto nightclub, discovering that he had been monitoring Mai's social media accounts in the days before her birthday. Posts showing her preparations for the celebration may have alerted him to her plans. The investigation team set up a command center where they coordinated efforts, reviewed evidence, and developed leads. Detective Laura Kurt, the lead investigator assigned to the case, later described the intensity of those first days. "We knew who we were looking for," Kurt stated in court documents. "Our primary concern was locating him before he could cross more borders or potentially harm others." The team issued an all-points bulletin for Williams and his white BMW, alerting law enforcement agencies across the Northeast. They also obtained emergency warrants to access Williams' phone records, bank accounts, and social media profiles, digital footprints that might lead to his location. Meanwhile, forensic specialists meticulously processed the evidence collected from the scene. Ballistics experts examined the recovered shell casings, determining they came from a 9mm semi-automatic pistol. This information was entered into national databases to check for connections to other crimes. DNA analysis of blood samples confirmed what witnesses had already stated, that Mai Johnson was the victim of the shooting. Trace evidence from the sidewalk also yielded partial fingerprints that would later be matched to Williams. The most compelling forensic evidence came from digital sources. Security camera footage from multiple angles had captured the entire incident in high definition. Video enhancement specialists worked to clarify license plate numbers and facial features, providing undeniable visual evidence of Williams' actions. Cell phone data proved particularly valuable. Tower pings tracked Williams' phone moving from Brooklyn to Queens before the shooting, then rapidly traveling west into New Jersey afterward. This digital trail provided investigators with a map of his escape route. The electronic evidence in this case was exceptionally strong, explained forensic analyst James Wilson. In today's world, it's nearly impossible to commit a crime without leaving some form of digital trace. The human element of the investigation proved equally crucial. Detectives conducted extensive interviews with everyone present during the shooting, but two witnesses stood out as especially significant: Mye's twin sister and her boyfriend, Deshaun Parker. Mye's sister provided detailed testimony about the events leading up to the confrontation. She described seeing Williams approach, noting his demeanor and the words exchanged. Her account of the shooting itself was precise despite the trauma she had experienced, a testimony to her determination to see justice for her twin. "He came straight at us," she told investigators. "He didn't hesitate. It wasn't random. He knew exactly who he was looking for." Deshaun Parker's testimony added crucial context about the prior relationship between Mye and Williams. He described previous encounters where Williams had displayed jealousy and possessiveness, revealing a pattern of behavior that culminated in violence. Parker had been close enough to see Williams' expression as he fired the fatal shots. "His face showed no emotion," Parker stated in his official testimony. "He looked at Mye like she was nothing to him after everything they'd been through." Additional witnesses from the nightclub and nearby establishments corroborated these accounts, creating a comprehensive picture of the night's events. Each testimony added another piece to the case against Williams. As days turned to weeks, the search for Williams expanded beyond New York. Evidence indicated he had fled to New Jersey immediately after the shooting, but his trail soon went cold. Investigators suspected he might be receiving assistance from friends or family members. The case necessitated cooperation between multiple law enforcement agencies. The NYPD worked with New Jersey State Police, the FBI, and local departments across several states. This collaboration required careful coordination of resources and information sharing. Detective Kurt established daily briefings where representatives from each agency could share developments and coordinate strategy. The joint operation set up surveillance at known associates' homes, monitored financial transactions for signs of Williams' location, and followed up on tips from the public. A significant break came in February 2022 when Williams' credit card was used at a gas station in Pennsylvania. Security footage confirmed his presence, showing he had altered his appearance by shaving his head and growing a beard. The sighting renewed the search efforts with fresh urgency. On March 9, 2022, nearly 3 months after Mye Johnson's death, patience and persistence paid off. Acting on intelligence gathered through informants, a joint task force located Williams at an apartment complex in Guttenberg, New Jersey. Law enforcement surrounded the building before dawn. A specialized tactical team led the entry, prepared for potential resistance. To their surprise, Williams surrendered without incident, perhaps recognizing the futility of further flight. "We got him," Detective Kurt texted to Mye's sister at 5:43 a.m. Those 3 words marked the beginning of the justice process for Mye Johnson. Williams was taken into custody by New Jersey authorities and held pending extradition to New York. When officers searched his temporary residence, they discovered the 9mm handgun believed to be the murder weapon, adding another crucial piece of evidence to the case. The arrest brought a measure of relief to Mye's family and friends. While nothing could restore what had been lost, the prospect of accountability offered some comfort amidst overwhelming grief. The manhunt had concluded, but the pursuit of justice was just beginning. Following his March 9th arrest in New Jersey, Quason Williams faced the legal consequences of his actions. Extradited back to New York within days, he stood before a Queens County judge on March 12, 2022, as prosecutors outlined the charges against him. The Queens District Attorney's Office pursued multiple serious charges: second-degree murder, criminal possession of a weapon, and reckless endangerment. The evidence assembled against Williams was substantial surveillance footage, ballistic matches, witness testimonies, and digital records created a compelling case. Williams' defense team initially attempted to argue that he had acted in self-defense, claiming he felt threatened by Deshaun Parker. This position quickly collapsed when prosecutors presented the video evidence showing Williams arriving armed and initiating the confrontation. Pre-trial hearings stretched across several months, with each proceeding bringing Mye's family back to the courthouse. They sat through technical testimonies, legal arguments, and evidence presentations, each day a painful reminder of their loss, but also a step toward accountability. The legal system moves slowly, noted the prosecutor assigned to the case, but in this instance, the evidence speaks clearly. Our job is to ensure that evidence is presented properly so justice can be served. While the legal process unfolded, Mai Johnson's family began the difficult work of rebuilding their lives around an absence that could never be filled. Her mother took custody of Mye's young son, creating stability amid profound loss. Extended family members rallied around them, providing emotional and practical support. The community that had embraced Mye during her life now embraced her memory. Colleagues from the NYPD School Safety Division organized fundraisers to establish a college fund for her son. The school where she had worked held a memorial service, with students and staff sharing stories of her kindness and dedication. In Bushwick, neighbors created a mural near her former home, a colorful tribute depicting Mye in her school safety uniform, alongside images representing motherhood and community service. The artwork became a gathering place for those who wished to remember her. Social media campaigns spread awareness about Mye's story, connecting it to broader conversations about domestic violence and gun safety. Her name became associated with calls for better protection of women facing threats from former partners. The most profound impact of Mye's death fell on those closest to her, particularly her young son and twin sister. For her 7-year-old son, the loss created wounds that would take years to heal. Child psychologists worked with him to process the trauma, using art therapy and play sessions to express feelings too complex for words. Children this age aren't equipped to understand such loss, explained Dr. Elaine Morales, a specialist in childhood trauma. They need continuous support as they grow and encounter new questions about what happened. For Mye's twin sister, the loss represented something uniquely devastating, the severing of a bond formed before birth. Friends reported that she struggled with survivor's guilt, questioning why she had lived while her sister died. She eventually became an advocate for gun violence prevention, transforming grief into action. Living without her is like living with half a heart. She told supporters at a memorial event, "But I know she would want me to keep going for her son, for our family, and for other people who might face similar danger." As Williams' case progressed through the courts, Mye's story catalyzed conversations about necessary reforms. Victims' rights organizations pointed to gaps in protection for those threatened by former partners. Law enforcement agencies reviewed protocols for responding to domestic disputes. The Mai Johnson Foundation launched on what would have been her 28th birthday, with a mission to support children who had lost parents to violence. The foundation also advocated for better tracking of domestic violence offenders across state lines and stricter enforcement of restraining orders. Annual memorial walks in Brooklyn brought attention to both Mye's story and the broader issue of gun violence in urban communities. These events grew each year, attracting participants from across the city who walked in solidarity with her family. Mai Johnson's life and death offer painful but necessary lessons. Her story highlights how quickly domestic conflicts can escalate to deadly violence, particularly when firearms are involved. It demonstrates the importance of taking threats seriously and the need for comprehensive support systems for those at risk. Perhaps most importantly, her story reminds us that victims of violence are more than statistics. They are parents, children, siblings, friends, and community members whose absence creates ripples of loss that extend far beyond a single moment of violence. As we conclude Mai Johnson's story, our team asks you to consider its implications. If this account has moved you, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and share this video. Your engagement helps ensure that stories like Mai's reach those who need to hear them. Beyond digital support, consider how you might contribute to violence prevention efforts in your own community. Whether through donations to victim support organizations, volunteering, or simply checking on friends who may be in difficult relationships, each of us has the power to help prevent similar tragedies. Mai Johnson's legacy continues through her son, through the foundation that bears her name, and through each person who carries her story forward. Thank you for bearing witness to her life and the systems that failed to protect it. By remembering Mai as more than just a victim, we honor the fullness of who she was and who she might have become.